Today on The Report, we discuss the shooting that took place in Lewiston, Maine.
Plus, the passing of Matthew Perry.
And the 95th birthday of the San Clemente Pier. The Report starts now. I'm Noah Sakatis.
And I'm Jasmine Alvarez. Don't forget to follow us on our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our latest content.
One of the deadliest mass shootings the U.S. has seen this year occurred Wednesday, October 25th in Lewiston, Maine. Around 7 p.m. that night, Robert R. Card Jr., an ex-Army Reserve officer, shot and killed 18 people and injured at least 13. The massacre took place at two locations, the Just Inn Recreation Bowling Alley and Shemengi's Bar and Grill, both roughly 12 minutes away from each other. The gunman initially got away, but police quickly identified him. The police department managed to gather and release images of the suspect, and so a manhunt ensued. Most public places were closed, and civilians were encouraged to stay home. The manhunt ended this past Friday evening when the gunman's body was found at Lewiston Falls. Victims have been identified and loved ones have been sharing tributes to those lost. The community of Lewiston has been changed forever. We want to acknowledge the victims of this case and highlight some of the stories shared about them. The victims at the bowling alley include Robert E. Violetti, 76, who was the first victim killed that night. Trisha Aslin, an off-the-clock part-time employee at the bowling alley, was killed as she ran to the counter to call 911. Michael R. Delaurier, II, 51, was enjoying a night out with his family and friend Jason Adam Walker, 51, when they were both killed. The man bravely charged at the gunmen, but not before covering their wives and children. Thomas Ryan Conrad, 34, was the manager at the bowling alley and met the same end when he also charged the gunman. Father and son William A. Young, 44, and Aaron Young, 14, both died during this incident. Keith D. McNair, 64, was also among the people killed at this location. The victims at Shemengi's Bar and Grill are Joshua A. Seal, 36, Max A. Hathaway, 35, Arthur Fred Strout, 42, and Ronald G. Morin, 55. Joseph Lawrence Walker, 57, who was a longtime bar manager at Shemengi's Bar and Grill, was also killed. His father called him a hero after discovering that Joseph had attempted to stop the shooter. Other individuals lost at the bar were Brian M. McFarlane, 41, Stephen M. Vozella, 45, William Frank Brackett, 48, Peyton Brewer Ross, 40. They were all participating at a cornhole tournament for deaf adults. 4 days after the incident, the community came together for a vigil so that the loved ones can be remembered.
On Saturday, October 28th, beloved actor Matthew Perry was found dead at his home in Los Angeles. He was 54 years old. Around 4 p.m. that day, authorities responded to a call from Perry's assistant after he was found unresponsive in his hot tub. According to law enforcement, it remains unknown at this time the exact cause of Perry's death. Born in 1969, Perry was the son of actor John Bennett Perry, who starred in films such as Independence Day and George of the Jungle. He spent much of his youth living in Canada with his mother, Suzanne Mary Langford, before moving to Los Angeles at age 15 to live with his father. His first acting gig was in 1979 when he starred in an episode of ABC's 240 Robert. Throughout the remainder of his childhood, Perry would star in multiple television shows for single episodes. He made his feature film debut in A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon. Perry went on to star in many Hollywood productions such as The Ron Clark Story, 17 Again, and Fools Rush In. His most well-known role was on the show Friends, which aired for 10 seasons from 1994 to 2004. Perry was on 236 episodes of Friends, and his character, Chandler Bing, was a hybrid of sarcasm and sweetness, making him a fan favorite. In his 2022 book titled Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, a memoir, Matthew Perry spoke candidly about his struggles with addiction and expressed dedication to helping others. Last year on The Q with Tom Power, podcast, Perry said, quote, "The best thing about me, bar none, is that if somebody comes to me and says, 'I can't stop drinking, can you help me?' I can say yes and follow up and do it," end quote. He also said that he hoped to be remembered as someone who, quote, "loved well, lived well, was a seeker, and helped people, that running into me was a good thing and not something bad," end quote. At the height of his career on Friends, Perry battled an addiction to painkillers after suffering an injury in 1997. Throughout the years, Perry's addiction brought dire medical consequences that included an exploded colon, a 2-week coma, a life support stint, multiple stomach operations, and a 9-month connection with a colostomy bag. When the news of his death broke, tributes poured out from Perry's friends, co-stars, loved ones, and fans. In a statement to People's Magazine, Perry's family expressed their heartbreak from the tragic loss of their son and brother. Additionally, co-creators of Friends, Martha Kaufman and David Crane, along with executive producer Kevin Bright, honored Perry in their release statement, saying, quote, "He was a brilliant talent. It's a cliche to say that an actor makes a role their own, but in Matthew's case, there are no truer words. We will always cherish the joy, the light, and the blinding intelligence he brought to every moment, not just to his work, but in life as well. He was always the funniest person in the room. He was more than that. He was the sweetest with a giving and selfless heart. We send all of our love to his family and friends. This truly is the one where our hearts are broken," end quote. Over the weekend, fans flocked to New York City to pay tribute at the apartment building where Perry's character Chandler lived. It is adorned with flowers, letters, and candles. Matthew Perry will certainly be missed. May he rest in peace and his legacy live on forever.
The beach community of San Clemente celebrates their historic pier's 95th birthday in October of this year with their Pier Pride Month by having some fundraising events. On October 7th, under the supervision of a certified lifeguard team, 12 residents paid $1,000 each to jump off the pier as an exciting way to raise money for the pier's renovations. Built in 1928 by San Clemente's founder, Ole Hansen, the pier was a frequent stop on a Santa Fe railroad and an underpass constructed in 1927 for train visitors to have access to the waterfront. The wooden 1,200-foot-long pier carries an illustrious past, which includes being utilized by Canadian and Mexican rum smugglers, who waited until after dark to enter through a trapdoor underneath the pier, where they could jettison their contraband merchandise. Dana Wharf's founder, Dan Hansen, unleashed his first fishing operation from the pier long before charter boats arrived near the Dana Point harbor constructed in the 1970s. Today, the pier is still a popular spot for fishing, plus the Dana Wharf Sport Fishing and Whale Watching hosts an annual derby with the city. On a yearly basis, an estimated 2 million people saunter the pier, and it's considered an important part of the coast's community character. However, maintenance for it isn't easy. The president of the nonprofit Pier Pride Group, Aileen Kawaz, explained that it was formed nearly a decade ago after maintenance and development funds evaporated. Kawaz said that Pier Pride sought to, quote, "fill those gaps in funding between what the city can provide and what the community would like to see," end quote. In the last few years, notifications about local wildlife were posted. Lively artworks were added to tidy up the restrooms. Plus, nets were attached to prevent birds from assembling and defecating in the water. The big goal of 2023 is to add permanent holiday lights. And at a recent event, Mayor Chris Duncan auctioned a lighting ceremony scheduled for the 27th of November to a bidder that donated $2,500 to flip the switch. The Pier Pride President Kawaz noted that while it's a burden for the community to maintain the pier, she says they are committed to the cause because she says, quote, "We all love the pier and want to do it for the future generations. And we're glad we have people who come together and are able to feel the same way," end quote. Why don't we move into the discussion portion? And I wanted to really talk about the shooting in Lewiston, Maine. First of all, I wanted to acknowledge the victims. It is such a tragic thing that occurred, and truly my heart goes out to all of the victims, to the survivors who now have trauma that they're going to be enduring, and to the family members as well who have trauma from having loved ones who had to endure that. How do you guys think the community can come together to honor and support the victims of gun violence?
Yeah, I think what they're doing right now is hosting like memorials. Do you guys? I think they've had one so far or two already. I'm not sure. I think they had two, but I think holding memorials is a good way of really coming together as a community and remembering the victims.
I think from a safety standpoint, I think we can increase heightened police presence in troubled communities where violence is more prone to occur. And then for troubled communities such as the veterans, since the actual gunman himself was a soldier, it seems like he was an ex-Army Reserve officer. Maybe outreach programs to help out some of these communities that are more prone to violence.
I think those are great points. And it really makes me think about, when we talk about what can we do to honor the victims, I think of closure, right? Providing closure for them, providing as many answers as possible, right? We will never get the full answer, right? The full explanation. The only person who would know would be the actual shooter themselves, but unfortunately, they're no longer here with us, right? So we can't get those concrete answers that we'd like, right? But I think that the victims still deserve some answers, and they're raising a lot of great questions, like how was he able to still get his hands on a gun, right? How was he still able to access weapons with a background and a history of having mental health issues, being institutionalized? There's questions being raised as to why didn't the Army Reserve do something and in terms of reporting to the police and bringing it to their attention, right? Because it's really truly up to the Army Reserve if they want to bring it to the police's awareness, and then the police will have that on record, so that way he will not have access to these guns and he won't be able to, maybe this could have been prevented, right? That's the big question. And I think the victims deserve, especially the families of the victims deserve those answers. Why did he have access to this?
Understandably so. From my limited knowledge of how the Army legal system works, they have a whole different prosecution system. They have a whole different law enforcement. They have the military police that don't exactly collaborate with the regular police. Understandably, how he got the weapons is the Army's responsibility. Obviously, he should never, if he had mental health issues, and you said himself he was institutionalized, that should not have been, he should not have had access to those weapons. It's understandable, though, how he got those weapons, since he is Army and he has access to weapons that are not normally even accessible to regular civilians. I mean, you can go into a gun store and find certain weapons, but some of the things that you'll find in Army Reserve bases, you would never find anywhere in public. So it's certainly understandable how he was able to access those weapons, but why the Army wasn't keeping a watch on this guy if he was already a red flag, that's beyond me.
Right. I would have to agree with both of you. And to add on to what Jasmine said, I totally agree with when you say it could have been prevented, because there were signs. There was 2 attempts he tried to. I think the first one was in May. His family members were questioning the suspect and were concerned about his mental health. They were describing him as angry and paranoid. And then the second incident was back in September, and the Army Reserve unit reported that he had been having psychotic episodes. And they predicted that he was going to snap and commit a mass shooting. And unfortunately, that's what had happened. And I think that they did report this to the sheriff's department. And I don't think the sheriff's department did enough, because there were signs that, people were concerned. They reported it. And he still had access to those guns. And it goes back to the question, why did he have access to these guns, after this getting reported?
Right. And I have to keep adding on to this, because I could go on to this for quite a while. But, it does make me ask the question, is the United States government doing enough? Are they doing enough to combat the issue of mass shootings? I personally feel like they aren't. And let me just bring into a study that I found, and this can be found. So sorry, I want to make sure I am being accurate when I cite my sources. This is from the National Criminal Justice Reference Service. This was provided in 2021, and this was a study on, let me make sure I say it correctly again. This is a study for an investigation of the psychosocial life histories of mass shooters. And what it brought to my attention was a lot of times the shooters, they always tend to, not always, right? I don't want to misquote, but they do tend to state beforehand their plans. They make it public, and they do publicly make it known that they want to carry out some sort of violence in a mass capacity. I mean, studies have been showing, it's been found that they imply that they have plans to do this. So we should start looking into this more and take these threats more seriously. And I have seen, right, that the government has been taking these threats more seriously. There's been recent news also that there's been other people that have been taken into custody because of threats against communities. But is the government doing enough?
Right.
I personally don't feel they are.
Yeah, I know in Maine they have what is called a yellow flag process. And basically what it is they could take away weapons if a medical authority or judge signs it off. And as I mentioned, the suspect did have some type of mental health issues. So goes back to the question, like, why did they not proceed with the yellow flag process? They did not proceed with that. So
the United States government, I think, can always be doing more, but that's not to say that the FBI, the ATF, and Homeland Security and other government agencies are not already taking this issue very seriously. So I'd have to agree with both of your points. Now moving on, of course, to the tragic loss of Friends actor Matthew Perry. Are you guys familiar with his work? How did the news of his death affect you both?
Yeah, and it's really devastating because he had all these medical problems due to his addiction. And I know he really, at the end of it, he really wanted to help others. And now that this has happened, it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, I think it is sad. You know, I personally didn't watch or get to know most of his work, which it was most popular for Friends, right? I think that was like mostly what he was known for, being Chandler. But I can't say that I watched too much, but I did see some episodes here and there. And, you know, from what I could see also on, you know, social media, he was a beloved character. So many people really cherished his work on that show, so much so that they even did a monument for him at the apartment in New York City, right? So I think it just goes to show how loved he was and just how much of a legacy he left behind with that show. But it is so sad. I think it's great though, right, that he did say he wanted his legacy to be that he helped others, right? And that people were happy that they met him. So I think that's the legacy that I think he will leave behind. You know, it is tragic what happened. I think it's still under investigation as to what really happened to him, right? But I think so far his legacy has been in a good way, just like he wanted.
Yeah, he's definitely made an impact within the
I
community.
personally didn't know him until he passed away. I've not watched Friends before, but I think, you know, there's a quote, there's a saying that is, you don't really know people until they're gone. How do you think we can honor him in his request to preserve his legacy?
I think, in my opinion, since he was really willing to helping others, I think just doing what he really wanted for other people that are going through the same adversity he was going through addiction. And so making sure we're there for one another, checking in, making sure we're good with our mental health.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Lena. I think definitely promoting what he most stood for, right? Which was helping someone who was going through addiction. He said he would be the person to be there and help them through it. So I think that's such a great role model to look up to, right? And it's a great thing to see in someone else and say, wow, I want to try that too. You know, I want to be there for someone in time of need.
Right.
And just like you said, maybe supporting and getting involved with organizations that help people that are struggling. Yeah.
Because I know you mentioned in his book, he talks a little bit about his struggles and how he was willing to help others. So I think that's really what he wanted to do.
Right. Yeah.
Now moving on to the San Clemente Pier. So have you guys ever been to the pier before? Or no?
I haven't. But now I'm
Where is it?
excited.
Do you know where it is?
I haven't even been myself. I don't know. I was hoping one of you guys had gone.
No, but you know what? I'm excited now that they're doing some renovations to see what's going on. You know, if they do put up the lights, I'm definitely excited to see that. definitely have to make my way out to San
Right,
Clemente
yes,
now.
for
I have to find out
sure.
where that is. but
Yeah,
yes, I agree.
right?
Yeah.
And what do you guys think about these renovations? Like, how do you think it will make an impact on the community?
I don't know what there is to do in San Clemente, so I hope it'd be more exciting.
Yeah,
for
because I know
sure.
Jasmine mentioned they were gonna do like the lights, right? Is it like Christmas lights or just like lights in general?
Right. So they want to have, they're putting on Christmas lights, but they
Okay.
want to keep it on permanently,
right.
right? So
Okay,
that way the
nice.
pier looks beautiful and lit up all throughout the year, you
Yeah.
know? Those summer nights, it'll still be cozy lights under there, you know?
Yeah.
So I think
I
that's a
love
great
that.
thing, you
Yeah.
know, trying to renovate. They spruced up the restrooms recently too,
Oh,
added some
okay.
art in there. So,
Almost 100 years though, there's got to be wood rot on that thing. They've got to keep that maintained.
right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the things that they're looking into, right? It's
Mhm.
maintaining it, making sure that it's going to withstand for future generations to
right.
come.
Mhm.
But they did bring into question how it's going to affect them cost-wise, right? Because that brings in a lot of money, and some of them were saying, "Is it worth it?" So
Right.
I don't know. What do you think? Is it?
Yeah.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
would have to agree with no. I think it is worth it because these monuments do create memories. You know, a lot of families
Mhm.
go there, friends go there, and the community. I think it's very
Right.
it's very important for the community, and I think if they tear it down, it'll really have a huge effect on the community. And it's super
Right.
pretty there. I mean, I haven't been, but I've seen pictures.
Yeah,
I've seen
of course.
pictures, and it looks super, super pretty.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it's personally important to the historical relevancy of the community. I mean, that's part of their heritage. It's still standing, and if it ever does go, then I think it would be a tremendous loss for them.
Yeah, and I think it does bring into question, right? Like if it were to be teared down, then what's to stop them from, preserving other historical monuments and stuff like that, such as museums, bridges, statues, libraries, things of that nature? If we don't defend these things, what's from stopping them from stepping in and just putting up any other commercial building? I mean, truly, we do. That's why I think I'm so proud to see that the community stepped forward, right? And they were like, no, we're gonna do something. We're gonna fundraise. I think that's great to see.
It's
Yeah.
sweet because it kind of reminds the community that we all share in these icons.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very important to preserve that history
Mhm.
and to show future generations that we were here.
Yeah.
Right.
is
Yeah.
us.
And we have a collective voice and we can use
Right.
it,
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
definitely.
Mhm.
I really like how they celebrated it, though, right? They like jumping off the pier, was it?
Right.
Going into the beach,
Yeah,
right?
they
really
I thought that was
did
super
so
cool. So
many
it just
creative
creates memories.
fundraising.
So I think it's very important to keep it. And I
Totally.
still want to go visit. So
Yeah.
I hope they keep it.
I hope to visit as well.
I have to agree
Great.
for sure.
And with that, that's all we have time for today. Hug your loved ones and stay safe. Have a good weekend, everyone.
And stay tuned for more news, views, and info.
We'll see you next time on The Report.